Hello there folks, and how is it going? And welcome back to another video. You join me in Luderitz, which is essentially the jumping off point if you want to visit Kolmanskop, which is an absolutely magnificent place to photograph. It's an old abandoned diamond mine that the desert has slowly but surely reclaimed to its own, and it's a wonderful, wonderful place to photograph. But I gotta keep this intro super short and sweet because I need to go around the corner to pick up the permits, and then I need to come back and collect the guys, and then we're gonna hit the road. We're gonna actually head out to the coast first, where it's gonna be super windy, and hopefully see some flamingos, and then on to Kolmanskop for sunset, and hopefully for some wonderfully haunting images. So let's get going. Welcome friends to the ASMR Photography Studio, and welcome to Diaz Point here just outside of Luderitz. This place is absolutely magnificent. On the way out here you have the opportunity, well, let's be honest, you probably will see flamingos because they seem to hang out here quite a lot, and we got treated to some wonderful flamingo action, flamboyances of flamingos. So it was really, really great to see these flamingos chilling out and enjoying their surroundings. Now onwards we go to Diaz Point itself. Diaz Point is actually quite a fascinating place with this beautiful lighthouse. Bartholomew Diaz was essentially an explorer from Portugal, and he left Portugal in around 1486 and was the first captain to successfully sail around the Cape of Good Hope. It took him about 2 years, and this particular location is where he anchored his ships, and he kind of then continued on, a bit lighter, kind of made his way back this way on his way home. A wonderful, wonderful place, very run down, and I didn't do any kind of talking to the camera or any of that kind of stuff out here. I figured these photographs would act as more like a documentary in lieu of me doing any talking to the camera. I figured I would let the pictures speak for themselves. But a wonderful, wonderful place to visit, and nowhere near as windy as it was the last time, and really, really happy with how these photographs turned out. So we have made it to Kolmanskop after that brief but beautiful detour to Diaz Point. Just before we came here, it was wonderful, and you know how calm it was. Now I wasn't making videos or vlogging it last time I was here with Brendan, but last time we were here it was so windy. You could hardly stand up. It was crazy, but it was actually nice and calm. So here we are, Kolmanskop. This is an abandoned diamond town. And like I mentioned earlier, it's like the desert has consumed it. Now, there's a photograph that I took here last time, that we all took here last time, and it is an incredible photograph. But I'm going to bring you guys along to take that same photograph. So let's wander up and see what we can see. So there are compositions for days here in Kolmanskop, but there are one or two that are kind of particularly standy-outy, and this one that I'm sitting in front of is by all means one of those wonderful photographs. There are two ways you can shoot this. You can shoot it wide. Let me turn you around. You can shoot it kind of wide like this, where you get the entire frame in, and maybe even then you can come over here and get a bit of the other door in. But the key is to try and find the best bit of separation between the top of the door frame and the second layer and the actual door itself. And then obviously we wait then for that nice light to come through. It is a bit overcast at the minute, but sure, look, we shall make the most of it. So let's set up our gear and let's get shooting. This is pure magic. So now we get into the meat and potatoes of this video. Kolmanskop is a tremendous place to wander around and get lost in. As I mentioned in my mad ramblings, there are a few spots that are kind of like very Kolmanskop-y, and this certainly is one of them. I really love how these images turned out, and I'm super duper happy with how I composed, and ultimately the light, while it was overcast, it still did come through enough to give that sense of illumination within those layers that you see here in the image. For me though, this particular image, I think I prefer the tighter crop where you're essentially looking through that first door and just focused in on this second layer and this door that's just being consumed by the sand. I really love this image. For me, it's just a simpler and cleaner image, and one that I really enjoyed photographing and processing. But I would be very curious to hear your thoughts in the comments below in which of these images you prefer, either the wider 3-layer shot or this tighter 2-layer shot. So do please let me know in the comments below. One thing to bear in mind when shooting in a place like this is bracketing. You really do want to try your best to bracket your images because the dynamic range is quite hefty, and you want to try and capture as much of that kind of detail as you can. And footprints, it's always so important to make sure you're not, well, one, walking into your own photograph, and two, there are people that come here during the daytime and so on and so forth. So be mindful that people have been here, and unless a kind of a sandstorm or a heavy wind has kind of blown sand through to cover those footprints, you gotta make sure not to, like, say here for instance, if you can see here beside me down here on the floor, somebody's walked through here, do you know? And that's okay, obviously, people that can come and visit these places, but just to be extra mindful of that. So let's set up this shot and have a look and see how it turns out. Now, I think a location like this deserves at least 1 or 2 black and white photographs. This is my attempt at photographing and processing in black and white. Now, as I have mentioned many times over the last, I don't know how many videos, my processing abilities in terms of black and white, I am still finessing and learning about. But I kind of like the way this one turned out. I like the deep contrast in the frame. I remember a few videos back when I had asked if people prefer the lighter kind of black and white images or the darker contrasty images. People seem to tended towards the more lighter, airier black and white images, and while I do love them, I can't help but seem to be drawn back to this kind of darker, heavier contrast style of black and white image. Maybe I'll process this again in that other style where it's just a bit brighter and so on, and do a poll or something to see if I can manage to make it any different. But other than that, super duper happy with how this one turned out, and a really good example of black and white adding that kind of like this timeless feel to this particular area. It's a wonderful place and subject to photograph. Beautiful. So this is a really wonderful scene here behind me. As you can see, you've just got these wonderful doors that are just being swallowed by the desert. And one thing that you also want to bear in mind when shooting images like this is your horizontal lines. It can be so easy for you to kind of fine tune your composition where your camera is ever so slightly tilted down or up, and that can add elements of distortion to your lines. And well, at least for me anyway, the nice thing about photographing like this is like the symmetry of the entire scenes. If your camera does have a, you know, like a spirit level kind of function, be sure to put that on and try your best to get those lines as green as you can, because it really does help add this nice kind of symmetry to your frames. And particularly in a location like this, the idea is to kind of like get that nice contrast between the beautiful dark shadows and the wonderful highlights in the sand, and of course these wonderful doors that are being swallowed up. So if this picture turned out to be any good, let's have a look at it now. One thing that really struck me about being back in Kolmanskop is just how much everything has changed. Even though it's a very slow process in the desert reclaiming these buildings, I still couldn't help but notice that this particular room was ever so slightly different to when I had photographed it last time. I knew in my head that I wanted to recreate this photograph for this video because I really do love this composition. It's nice and simple, it's nice and clean, it's very uniform with that nice diagonal that runs through in the sand, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. But for me, looking back, it's really cool to see what has slightly changed in terms of the composition. The sandbank is just that tiny bit higher, but overall I'm really happy with how this image turned out. Now this next image that you're seeing here was actually taken from the sunrise when we arrived back there, and I wanted to try and achieve, like a starburst image, which I thought could lend itself quite well. And I really do like how this particular one turned out with the starburst coming through that center window and creating this gorgeous halo around the frames. Really happy with how it turned out. Now again, starburst images are something that I am still kind of, learning how to finesse and, get better at, but I really feel like this is a good kind of starting point for me in terms of that process. But overall, really happy that this room exists and I was able to revisit it again and photograph it because it is truly wonderful. So what an end to a wonderful afternoon and just day in general. But we are going to come back here tomorrow for sunrise, and hopefully the sky is a bit clearer and we can get some of that beautiful directional light that makes this location really sing. But for now, we are going to pack up, as you can see here, and we're going to go have some dinner, and the adventure shall continue again tomorrow. So let's go. Well, good morning, folks, and what a morning it is. It's a bit chilly and I probably should have put a hoodie on, but I'm not going to step on that piece of wood. And welcome back to Kolmanskop. This place is really magic and quite spooky in the dark. But look at this first picture that I have lined up for myself here. It is really nice. A couple of the people that are on the tour, as expected, had did their research before coming to try and get pictures that they've seen online and so on and so forth. And this picture, I wonder if I can actually find the one that brought us here on Instagram, or I can't remember where he said he found it. It's actually quite a different scene. It's the exact same place, but quite a different scene, and it's just testament to this place being kind of decaying and being overrun by the elements, because the image that, if I can find it, I'll pop it up on the screen, because the image, the door at the end of the corridor was still, in place and so on and so forth. But again, as you can see here, it's just very trashed now at the minute, But again, I obviously don't think people did this. This was just time. But it's a wonderful thing because it adds very nice kind of context to this location and how time is kind of slowly but surely reclaiming it. So it's a wonderful photograph. Now, the sun is coming up, and it will come up and it will stream through these windows. So I might bookmark this one and come back to it when the light is a bit, brighter. But as it stands now, this picture I really love. So if it turns out to be any good, I'll pop it up on the screen for you now. So this particular image we are looking at, I think, is probably my second favorite image from this particular trip. We'll get to my favorite one soon enough. But I really love the composition here, and as I was rambling on in the video, it really lends itself well to just this straight on photograph. And really, when the light is coming through the windows, it really accentuates that kind of feel of isolation and just time consuming this place. I really love how it turned out. In terms of the processing, I did kind of go a bit heavier. I don't know why. I felt like for me anyway, I kind of needed that just to give it a bit more of a artistic kind of feel. So I hope I was able to translate that well enough for everybody to see. But overall, I really do love how it turned out. I think it's a wonderful shot, and super duper happy with it. Now this next image, another little black and white, it's just totally off the cuff of a piece of the window that was from the previous picture. I literally just turned left and photographed this corner of the window. And again, when you couple that with the previous one, it just adds an extra layer of depth to the overall kind of story of photographing this place. And that's one thing that I really, really love about this image. Its simplicity, the texture, and just that it adds an extra level of kind of depth to the previous image. And I think side by side, I think they really, really do work very, very nicely. So I'm super duper happy that I just randomly took this little picture, thinking of nothing of it at the time. But now with them side by side, I think it really does help accentuate and emphasize each of their own standing next to each other, if that makes sense. So I really, really do love how this one turned out. So we have started to get some very nice light coming through. It's not as harsh or crazy as you may see images of, because there's quite a haze out there on the horizon, but nonetheless you can see my shadow here and it is absolutely gorgeous. And I framed up, this is another one of these kinds of like classic Kolmanskop images, and for good reason. It's absolutely gorgeous. We're just looking through these sets of doors, and it's one of the few examples where the color is still very vibrant on the walls, and in the morning light like this, it's really, really nice. So yeah, it's such a beautiful, beautiful place. The only problem about a shot like this is that it's very kind of thoroughfared. It's very well walked through, so there are a lot of footprints. You'd need to be here like right after a storm or something, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful frame, and I'm going to go on and continue exploring. I might head back to where we were this morning, maybe, but we're going to have an amble and see what else we can see. It's pure gold. So this again is another one of these very popular images when photographing here in Kolmanskop, and for good reason, because it's really, really beautiful. You just get these gorgeous layers looking through these doors, and of course then the different colors of each of the walls. It's probably, I think, one of the most colorful sections that's left in Kolmanskop. Now obviously I haven't explored the whole place as in-depthly as say Brendan for instance, but it really does lend itself well to photographers. But like I mentioned, it is unfortunately very walked on. So there are a lot of shoe prints and things like that, and while you can try your best to get rid of them in post-production, you may not get them all, but it's definitely worth trying just to tidy up the sand in the base. Now the second image again is just, I went through that first door, framed up the two doors, and then that beautiful, beautiful light that's coming through the window being cast on the left wall. So I'm super duper duper happy with how these two turned out. And again, like I say, they're a bit easy in terms of the shots that you can get there, but absolute worth photographing when you are there. Folks, we are here now with Courtney, who's at the end of this wonderful corridor which we photographed earlier this morning, and we're just playing around now. She's acting as a model for herself, which is wonderful, and we've put her down at the end of the corridor, and now we're going to try and catch some light in the sand. So let's see, this is her camera, just so you know, I'm not taking any pictures here, so we're all good. Okay, are you ready? Alright. So fun times, here we go.
Alright, ready.
You're just rattling off shots, hoping one is the one.
Okay.
So let's keep our fingers and toes crossed that all that worked out. So this is the final result of Courtney's image. She sent it to me just the other day. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Like this composition we photographed earlier in the day, you can see why for somebody like Courtney who photographs these particular kinds of images, it would lend itself well to her style of photography. And I really, really do think it's wonderful. It's absolutely fantastic. Just the sand out of her hand and it catching the light so beautifully. It's really, really fantastic. So I really had a great time photographing with Courtney on this particular morning. So cheers, thanks a million Courtney for sending me the picture. It really did turn out absolutely fantastic. So this next image was a bit of just this rare find for me. I had just gone off exploring one of the houses that are slightly up on the hills. I managed to weave my way out to the back garden, essentially. I guess that's what this was, or a bike shed. But I just managed to see this frame and I thought, yeah, I really do like this composition, and I think it's really, again, it's very indicative to this kind of area when photographing, just this encapsulation of time and how this desert is slowly consuming this village, and for me I think that really showcases that here in this particular frame. Now this next image, this one is my favorite one from the entire, I've been now there 3 times, I've been very lucky to be there 3 times, and this one for me is, I think, probably my favorite image that I've captured in those times that I have been there. There's just something about the off angles and the line that goes straight through with these beautiful diagonals. The aesthetics of the framing and the composition for me really just works so beautifully, and then with the post-production I just wanted to keep things a bit simple, to keep things a bit light, and really delighted with how this particular one turned out. Now this last image, again, this is actually the outside of the house that we were just in, and I just wanted to kind of photograph a wider scene. So the sunrise, we caught some beautiful light in the sky, and I just wanted to capture a bit of a wider scene, just to kind of tell a bit more of a story and what these buildings are actually like. Now some of the B-roll that you would have seen throughout the video, helps to tell that story, but for me, being a photographer, I like to try and include those moments as well. So I'm really happy with how this particular one turned out as well. And it actually quite reminds me of the scene from Evil Dead 2 when he gets thrown around the forest and the cottage speaks to him and asks, "Join us." So that's the vibe I'm getting from this. But really, overall, absolutely delighted with how all of these images turned out. So a wonderful place to visit. Well, what a fun way to end this morning's shoot, photographing Courtney and her hat. I love the hat, it's a great hat. So yeah, what a wonderful way to end this morning. Such a beautiful morning. You would have seen pretty much all of the pictures that I was happy with that I took. I kind of played around, I didn't do too much talking to the camera because we were having so much fun. But yeah, it's such a wonderful place. If you ever get the opportunity to come and visit a place like this, or on a workshop, say with Brendan for instance, I would absolutely recommend it to you because it's just so unique. And that's one thing that's always struck me about Namibia and this place, is just the uniqueness of the locations. It's just, this place is really wonderful. So anyways, there you go. We are on our way back to the van now, and we're going to head back into the lodge, have some breakfast, clean up a bit, and then hit the road. Today is a long drive day, and today we really kind of get in onto the crazy ground. So yeah, today's a long drive day. I think it's about 6 hours of a drive, pretty much off-road for about 5 of those. So it's hard going, but nonetheless we're going to have a good laugh along the way. So anyways, I will leave it here for Kolmanskop. Our next destination is, where are we going? We are going to the desert. We are going to the Namib desert to photograph the beautiful sand dunes. Oh, that's like an old train. So we are going to the Namib desert next. So we have a long drive. I'll pop it, if I remember, I'll pop up like a map or something to show you how far away it is and where we're going. And so I will see you there. If you like the video, folks, do please hit that like button, and if you fancy following along for more of this epic Namibian adventure, you're most welcome to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Cheers.